Today we are going to be answering the essential question of how do we use ratio tables to find equivalent ratios. So in our last lesson, we used a comparison for ratios, like the word to or a colon, or to turn it into a fraction. And we were able to use those ratios to find their value, how much per one thing. Well, today we're going to be using ratio tables and finding equivalent ratios. So first of all, we want to know, what is a ratio table? Well, a ratio table is a special tool that we use to organize our ratios so we can find a multiplicative relationship, meaning we're going to use this tool to either multiply or divide. So ratio table is a tool used to organize ratios. So a ratio table is a tool used for organizing ratios. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. We're going to use it for organizing. And when we use this tool to organize our ratios, we are able to find equivalent ratios, or ratios that have the same value or the same relationship. So equivalent ratios are ratios that have the same relationship and the same values. They are equal. So let's go ahead and put these words to the test so that you can see what they mean when they are in action. So they're equal, same value, same relationship. All right, so let's start out by looking at example A. In example A, it wants me to complete a ratio table. And it says to find the missing values in the ratio table, and then they want to know the equivalent ratios. Well, we're going to start out by first comparing cups to quarts. So cups to quarts, and we're going to create a ratio table that looks like this. And in our ratio table, we will have spots for cups and spots for quarts. The initial ratio we're going to start with is 3 cups to 3/4 quarts. It then has a 12, a 15, and a 5/4. And our job is to fill in or find these missing boxes. So we're going to fill in these missing spaces by using the information that we have. Or we're going to use what we call the multiplicative relationship. We're going to create equivalent ratios from this ratio table. So the first thing we want to look at is comparing 3 3/4 to 12 and something. So we're going to figure out 3 over 3/4 compared to, or is equal to, 12 over something. We don't know what that something is. So we're going to ask ourselves, how do we get from 3 to 12? How did I move from 3 to 12. What did I do? Well, I multiplied by 4. So the multiplicative relationship here is 4. That means that on the bottom, I need to do the same thing. I'm going to need to multiply by 4. So 3 times 4 equals 12. So I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom. I'm going to take 3 over 4, and I'm just going to multiply that by 4. Oops, not 4 over 4. Multiplying it by 4 over 1 because that's one whole, 4 wholes. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply. So 3 times 4 is 12, and 4 times 1 is 4. So in this box, I get 12 over 4, or I can reduce this as 12 divided by 4, which is 3. So my first number in my box is 3. So from here to here, I multiplied by 4. So on the bottom, I also need to multiply by 4. So let's do this next one. How do I get from 3 to 15? 3 times what gives me 15? Well, 3 times 5 gives me 15. So on the bottom, to move from this box to this box, I'm also going to multiply by 5. So we're going to take 3 over 4, and we're going to multiply that by 5 over 1, or just 5. Put the 1 there in order to make it a fraction, and we get 3 times 5, which is 15, divided by 4. So we get 15 over 4. So 15 over 4. That is our fraction there. So when I have 15 cups, I have 15/4 of a quart. Now I want to multiply in order to find this empty box here. Well, we know that this here is going to be a reduced fraction possibly, or we need to figure out how did we get from 3 to 5 or 4 to 4. So what we're going to do is we are going to figure out what our multiplicative relationship is. How do I get from 3/4 to 5/4? Well, we're going to use some division. So this time we're going to work backwards. Okay, so now I have my calculator tool. So I want to know, how do I get from 3 to 5? We know that 4 times 1 is going to give us 4. So we're going to figure out what's our multiplicative relationship to get from 3 over 4 to 5 over 4. So we know that we're going to put it over 1, just like we did here. We multiplied by 4 over 1, 5 over 1. So we're going to take 3/4 and we're going to multiply that by something over 1. And we need to know what that something is so that we can get 5/4. 4 times 1 is 4. So up here, we're just going to divide. 5 divided by 3. So 5 divided by 3 is going to give us 1.6666666, and so on. Repeating. And that's going to give us 5. So on the top, we're going to have to multiply by the same number. So 3 times 1.6 repeating. So I'm just going to turn around and multiply this by 3, and that gives me 5. So in my top box, I get 5. So I've used the multiplicative relationship to make equivalent fractions. 3 to 3 and 3/4. This is equal to 12 over 3, 15 over 15 and 15/4, and 5 and 5/4. All of those, each one of these is equivalent. Okay, let's do another example. This time I'm going to get rid of my calculator there. And let's do another example. Example B, again, we're going to use a ratio table to help us. And in this ratio table, we are comparing time to money, so hours to dollars. So example B, we are going to compare time in hours over money in dollars. All right, so first, time. When I work 6 hours, I make $27. Then it says I work 3 hours, and I want to know how much money I make. I work some amount of time, and I make $67.50. And then last but not least, I work 21 hours. How much money do I make? So my job is to go through this and figure out, how do I get from one box to the other? Well, 6 divided by 2 gives me 3. So on this bottom one, I also need to divide by 2. So I'm going to divide by 2, and that will give me $27 divided by 2 is going to give me $13.50. So when I divide by 2, so in this column, to get from 6 to 3, I had to divide by 2, so I need to do the same thing on the bottom to keep it equivalent. Let's go to the next one. How do I get from 27 to 67.50? Well, we're going to take 67.50 and divide that by $27, and that is 2.5 hours. So 27 times 2.5 gives me 67.5. So I'm going to go ahead up here, and I'm going to multiply by 2.5. So 6 times 2.5 equals 15. So when I work 15 hours, I then earn $67.50. Okay, my last question is asking, how do I get to 21 hours? So I started at 6. What did I do to get to 21? So I'm going to figure out, what am I multiplying? 6 times what gives me 21? Well, we're just going to do 21 divided by 6 and work backwards. 3.5. So we had to multiply by 3.5. So on the bottom, I'm going to multiply by 3.5. So I will take 27 times 3.5, and that will give me $94.50. So my equivalent ratios are 6 over 27, 3 over 13.5. I have 15 over 67.5 and 21 over 94.5. These are all equivalent ratios because we've used a multiplicative relationship to move from one number to the next. Okay, we're going to do one more example together, and then I'm going to give you a try it. So one more example, and then you will have your try it. Let me get this set up. All right, your example. All right, we have gold beads and silver beads. So example C, we are comparing gold and silver. So gold beads to silver beads. All right, and in our ratio table, it says that our starting ratio that we start with is 6 to 9. So for 6 gold beads, I have 9 silver. So 6 gold to 9 silver. We have 12 and 24 and 30. And they want us to find all of the silver beads. So how do I move from one to the other? Well, let's check it out. So 6 times 2 gives me 12. So on the bottom, I'm going to multiply by 2. So 9 times 2 is 18. That gives me an equivalent ratio of 12 to 18. On our next one, we're moving from 6 to 24. How do I get from 6 to 24? Well, on this one, we're going to multiply by 4. 6 times 4 is 24. So on the bottom, 9 times 4 is going to give us 36. So 36 would be our next one. And last but not least, our last problem that we're looking at, how do I get from 6 to 30? Well, I'm going to multiply by 5. So I'm going to need to multiply on the bottom by 5 as well. So 9 times 5 gives us 45. So our equivalent ratios in this ratio table are 6 to 9, 12 to 18, 24 to 36, and 30 to 45. Those are all of our equivalent ratios. Okay, it is your turn now to do a try it. So we're just going to do one try it today. And your try it, you need to fill out the ratio table and then find the equivalent ratios. So fill it out and then go from there. All right, let's do gallons to days. All right, and initially you have 0.4 to 0.75. You're going to want to use a calculator for this. 1.2 and 1.6. Okay, go ahead and fill in the missing days and then tell me the equivalent ratios. When you're done, go ahead and hit play so you can check your level of understanding. So how do I get from 4 to 1.2? Well, let's check it out. What did I multiply by? Let's work backwards. I had 1.2 divided by 0.4, and that's going to give me 3. So I multiplied by 3. So on the bottom, I'm also going to multiply by 3. So 0.75 times 3 is 2.25. Okay, and then my last one is moving from 0.4 to 1.6. So 0.4, we're going to work backwards. 1.6 divided by 0.4, and that gives me times 4. So on the bottom, I need to multiply by 4. 0.75, so times 0.75, and that gives me a total of 3. So my equivalent ratios are 0.4 over 0.75, 1.2 over 2.25, and 1.6 over 3. Those are our equivalent ratios. How did you do on this? How'd you do on this try it? Go ahead now and answer your essential question. How do we use a ratio table to find equivalent ratios? And then put your level of understanding out to the side. Where are you at with your understanding? When you are finished, you can come on back to the Google Meet and ask for help, or you can go on and do your practice work. As always, I appreciate all of your hard work and effort, and make it a great day.